Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Penrite Insight. I'm here with Matt Payne to talk all things Taupō. Yeah, so in practice we had a bit of a different way of going about the session because it was a longer practice session, 90 minutes. But it worked out quite well for us. I think we were able to cycle through a lot of different pre-planned changes that we discussed before we got to the track, areas that we thought the car would need to be strong, and that was really beneficial. We could tune the car in both a race and a qualifying mode on both a used tyre and a green tyre. So I quite enjoyed it. I don't know what it was from your perspective.
Yeah, obviously with Taupō being a new track for everyone on the calendar, it was quite good to have a longer practice session just to sort of work out what the lines were, the gears, where to save the tyre, what the track surface was doing. So it was good in that aspect to have a longer session so we could spend more time on the track. But also, I think when we have the two 45-minuters, it kind of gives you a bit of time in between to kind of settle on it, go over some data and some video, and then have a plan for the next session in terms of what you want to try next. So when you're in that 90-minute session, it's kind of, you don't get to like settle down and have a look at things and then go again. It's kind of, you're just going the whole time, which is good, I think, for car setup and trying different things like that. But for driving wise, I think it's always good to sort of get out of the car, reset, have a look at some stuff, and then try and have a plan to go ahead in the next session. So yeah, I think we used our time pretty wisely, and yeah, to finish P2 at the end of that was pretty good.
Yeah, so at Taupō, we identified it before we got there. We confirmed it once we got there, and then once we drove on it, we had even more information. Pretty interesting track. Definitely the track surface makes a big difference. It probably had the biggest difference between two surfaces, I think, on any track on the calendar. Like the new surface was beautiful, fresh AGP style, nice fresh tarmac, and then the old surface was like old school barbed yellow.
Yeah.
Pretty worn out, very coarse, very tough on the tyre, and that then presented itself a pretty different balance car to car. So that was definitely a big challenge in the practice session, and we identified it pretty much after run one. It was like, I got this car on this surface, I got this car on this surface, and the two cars were very different from each other.
Pretty much opposite ends of the setup spectrum, really. So it ends up being quite difficult to drive when you have two different surfaces from, two completely points of grip, right? Like it's hard when you come into the new surface and you've got maybe you have heaps of front, or you have a lot more grip to deal with, so you have to adjust your driving style to be able to maximize it by carrying in more speed, trying to get through the corner faster. Whereas with the older stuff, you really have to back it up and underdrive it to make sure you don't overdrive and go past the limit of the tyre. So definitely difficult, and one I'll remember for a bit. I definitely learned a lot on the weekend about saving tyres and just managing where on the track is the best point to do that. And yeah, it was a challenge, but I think it was a fun challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so qualifying on Saturday was actually pretty good for us. The weather was looking pretty dicey in the morning, so it was a bit sort of hairy between slicks and wets for us in qualifying. The track was just drying out ever so slightly, and there was probably a bit of a dry line going on. And me personally, I didn't think it was going to be slicks. I thought, we're going to be wet. So I was almost preparing myself for a full wet track. But yeah, I don't know, something about the Taupō surface, and it dried out quite quickly. And
yeah, I think the other categories that were on it, like the rate at which it dried was quite quick. And like once there wasn't any more rain falling, it was just a thin layer that then dried off really quickly. Yeah. So it was good. We had a qualifying session in the dry, and the car was really strong. Yeah, no, we ended up P1 in that session, which was really good. Come across the line and got the last lap, and there was always going to be the fastest in drying conditions like that. So yeah, the car was awesome. Managed to put it all together in that final lap. It's really tricky when the track's drying, because
the track keeps giving you more grip, but you have to find that yourself, and it's so easy to over push it and make a tiny mistake, and it gets pretty difficult when you're driving around like that. I always find that most of the times when you're in sort of conditions like that, you end up driving like 95%, just so you don't want to make that mistake.
Protect yourself just that little bit.
Yeah, but and then the shootout was it was a little bit disappointing because
it was.
Yeah, the weather sort of turned, and obviously being P1 in the qualifying session, we went out last for the shootout, which generally, when you're in the dry, probably gives you the best track. When you've got 9 other guys running before you, but yeah, not this time.
Yeah, not this time. We got a bit unlucky. The weather rolled in, and the first runners had a damp track, and then from about I think about 4th or 5th runner onwards, really started to rain. By the time you got out there, it was like a mild monsoon.
Yeah, no, it's pretty sad when you're driving around and then you start like watching the TV. We had a big screen right in front of us, and I could see the splits from the guys going just before me, and they were like 3 seconds off by the time they got to the middle sector. So it's too hard at that point to try and get a pole position time out of it. So yeah, it's a bit disappointing, but P8 was still okay. We were still in the top 10. We still had a chance at trying to fight for a podium in the race, but yeah, things quite quickly changed.
So Matt, we obviously started P8, and then we had the race, very wet. The wettest race we've had all year, since the Gen 3 category kicked off. So yeah, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, it was pretty eventful, I must say. Obviously, we were sort of sitting not too bad, where we started from, and then obviously had a bit of a mishap at the first corner and got spun. I was on the outside just trying to sort of get around people, and I thought I was clear, but I think a couple of guys underneath me sort of washed up and locked up as they were chasing each other into the corner, and I was just got the raw end of the deal, which was a little bit unfortunate. But yeah, like you said, the conditions were mad. Like the going down the back straight for the first time after the start, like man, and especially because we were last, obviously being dropped back, and was in the gravel for a bit and got myself out, but couldn't see a thing. Like the spray was so bad. Like going into turn 12, I was like had my binoculars out trying to look for brake lights. Like it was pretty tough. But there's a couple of safety cars at the start of the race, which made things interesting. And yeah, the conditions, they sort of, it started to dry out in the middle of the race. Like there was less water, and it sort of was changing your driving style a little bit, but then it would start raining again, and we sort of ran a bit of a different strategy because we kind of had nothing to lose at that point, being so far down the field. And
we had to roll the dice a little bit. Like from going P8 to last, and then we needed to try and figure out how we could make our way back through. So yeah, we tried to run quite long on that stint, and it was working out for us, and the track was drying. It was still working for us. Everything was good. We'd done all our pit stops quite early. Obviously Taupō fades the tyre pretty hard, even a wet tyre on a wet track. But then once that second lot of rain came, that's when that sort of screwed that strategy. Because it meant we had to come and pit, extra stop than everyone else kind of thing, and get another set of wets and finish the race off. We still had a good wet car. We still managed to finish 13th and drive through, but I think if it stayed dry the whole way, I think it would have been pretty interesting to see. Like we would have definitely ended up converting that wet into an inter and an inter into a slick.
Would have slowly started to wear the tyre down, and all the blocks would have been gone. I do remember you saying to me, like after we did that pit stop, you said we had like 44
Oh no,
laps
it's more
to go.
than that. It's like a solid 50.
50 laps to go, and he's like, yeah mate, you've got to, this is to the end. And I was thinking like, are you serious? Like what?
It was an optimistic strategy.
I reckon it could have worked.
I really think it would have. If it stayed dry or kept drying for us.
The pace was still there when it was a little bit drier. So yeah, hindsight maybe, well, to be fair, we had a good punt, and it was worked out. But
and I mean, if it didn't go, didn't rain again, you came, when everyone else did their next lot of stops, you went to the lead.
Yeah, we were out in
P2 or
front.
something.
Yeah,
and so at that point it had worked. It was just with the extra rain, there was no way you were
I had
holding on.
no grip. I was slow.
Pretty bold tyres when they came back to me.
Oh well.
Yeah, so next day we had another qualifying. Today was a lot drier. That day was a lot drier. Give us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, obviously the track on Saturday and the qualifying session in the morning was a bit sort of 50-50, and then it sort of went quite into the dry stage where we probably started on Sunday with it being quite dry, so the times were probably significantly quicker. And yeah, the session was pretty good. We stuck to our plan and managed to finish P4, which was pretty good. It was pretty close. The times were
I think it was only
really close.
I think it was 2:10s to Anton at the front, and he put in an absolute blinder. But the other couple in front of us was half a tenth.
Yeah, if that, like in the space of like 4 cars. So everyone did a pretty good job in qualifying, obviously with the track being a little bit drier than it was on Saturday, slightly easier to find the limit and things like that. So yeah, that gave us a good go into the shootout, which was dry this time, thankfully.
Yep.
So managed to be on a level playing field for that, and yeah, the shootout was really good for us. We ran 4 green tyres, and I knew that, you know, the team's been, you know, saying it's going to be really crucial to get the tyres up, which it was. It was quite cold in Taupō. I don't know, it's probably like 13 degrees. Man.
Yeah, 13, 15 degrees.
Yeah, so it was really cold, and with 4 greens as well, that's pretty tough to get them up. But we managed to do a really good warming procedure. We went over it, we knew what we had to do, and yeah, once the tyres came up, I just put together a pretty solid lap, and it was like, even still, the margins were super close. Like it was like nothing to get pole, but we managed to do it, which was awesome to get pole in front of the home crowd. It's something I've always dreamed of doing. So yeah, that was really cool, and to start the race from pole in front of, you know, everyone else watching, and I had lots of friends and family there watching, and they were all just so rapt. So yeah, yeah, it was great to start on pole.
So Matty, we got to start from pole. Pretty exciting for us, as you said. Starting in front of the home crowd in pole was pretty awesome. Dry track this time, so completely different kettle of fish to the day before. Give us your thoughts on the race.
Yeah, we managed to get a really good start, which was good, leading into turn 1 and led for the first sort of 9-10 laps, I think, or 7-8 laps. And then, yeah, we probably just struggled a little bit in the first stint with a bit of tyre life. I probably didn't quite know the margins or what the margins were in terms of how much to save. And yeah, Taupō is well, now that we look back at it, is super brutal on the tyres. And man, if you drive a little bit too hard just for like 4 laps, you're gonna get smoked at the end of the stint, which sort of happened to us. So yeah, that was tough to see, you know, obviously, you know, being out in front for a bit and then just to fade back in the first stint. It was pretty hurtful, but yeah, we sort of ran a pretty standard strategy. I think, you know, popped out in sort of 3rd, 4th, around those places. 5th, had to pass a couple of cars back at the start of a couple of stints, but yeah, it was pretty uneventful race for us, really. Once the first stint sort of got out of the way, we sort of just ran our own race, and yeah, probably missed a little bit in the car for the leaders. I think they were probably a little bit better than anyone else on the day, but yeah, I didn't think it was too bad.
I think for us, like, we're being pretty honest in debriefing it for coming back from the event. Yeah. Our pace was strong, like we had top 4 pace, no doubt. We just lacked a little bit towards
There seems to be quite a split between the top 4, like even from the first sort of Bathurst, and now we've sort of gone to Taupō, and there was those 3 cars that were way out in front of anyone else. And then even at Taupō, there was sort of 2 cars that were way in front, and there was sort of only like us and Anton that could kind of match them a little bit. It seems to be quite a split in terms of like the top 5 pace, whether you're really fast and you're pulling away, or you're backing up into the rest of the train. So it's pretty tough, I think, the competition at the moment.
Oh, for sure. And so yeah, we've been debriefing that and figuring out how can we try and bridge that gap to the 2 888 cars. They're definitely the benchmark at the moment that we're doing everything we can to catch up to. But that race, still really solid points for us. Like the team's still 2nd in the team's championship. We're 5th in the drivers. So still really strong. So we can't complain about the result. Obviously, it would have been nice to go starting pole to at least make the podium.
It hurts when you don't convert at least the podium when you start on pole. But hey, like we learned a lot from that race. I think you and I learned a lot in terms of communication and just sort of being a little bit more organised for a race like that, especially when it was fully wet the day before and we probably didn't quite have the info we needed for Sunday, and in terms of just the way we go about the whole tyre saving thing, because that effectively was the race. Like it was a tyre race and we just didn't quite manage it the best. And you know, there's definitely things I can work on in terms of my driving and get better at doing that. And you know, Jack and the teams, they're all working together, and yeah, it's all coming together. It's all looking very promising, and we're really looking forward to Perth in a couple of weeks' time.